Well, hello again, guys. Now, sadly, we're not on the streets of Gosforth. Yes, Storm Lilian has forced me indoors, all on the purpose of sound quality, you see. Now, it is brutal out there. It really is vicious. It's more Lilian Thuram than Lilian Islanders. Remember him, Sunderland's non-goal scoring centre forward. So, yeah, I'm here. This isn't my bedroom. If I had my way, my bedroom probably would be decorated like this, but my wife wouldn't allow it. So no, I'm in my oldest son's room, and quite what a backdrop it is. The Marco van Basten picture over my shoulder there, that was actually mine when I was a little boy. I fashioned that out of magazine cuttings, and yeah, what would probably be their 35-year-old frame. But no, we're not here to talk about Marco van Basten, vintage Newcastle kits, or even Diego Maradona. No, it's Kieran Trippier. The big news from this week is that, yes, Trippier wants to leave, is open to leaving Newcastle. What is going on? What do I think will happen, and what do I think should happen for the best of Newcastle? Well, I'll briefly answer or give a nod to that last question first. I think Newcastle have got to keep him. I really do. That was Eddie Howe's message to us this morning. I just think they cannot afford to let him go, especially not when in this short period of time that is remaining, and given the lack of funds, they are not going to get a right back, a defender, a character, a player of that calibre, that quality, as good as Kieran Trippier. They're just not. You might argue he's already there in the form of Tino Livramento. Personally, I think given time, Trippier will find his way back into the team ahead of Livramento. Livramento may end up elsewhere in the side. But certainly for me, while some may make an argument for Trippier going, given his age, 34, turns 34 next month, not for me, not now, not the situation Newcastle are in. I'll get onto that more in just a second. But first of all, what has happened? Well, earlier in the week, a story that was revealed by myself at Mail Sports, the issue of the captaincy. And there's been a little bit of uncertainty around this for a while now, in that Jamal Lascelles either hasn't played or he's been injured, and Kieran Trippier has stepped up to be vice-captain. He's led out the team in the vast bulk of matches that he's played for the club in the 2.5 years he's been here. Now, Eddie Howe wanted more certainty around the issue of who would captain the team. And he was asked on this morning repeatedly, and he said, it was my decision. These are the decisions you paid to make as a manager. And he thought that by promoting Bruno, his words, that would empower the Brazilian, would get more out of him. All of this detail was recorded in my report earlier in the week too. The belief that Bruno Guimaraes is someone who is guaranteed his place in the team every week. He plays at the heart of the side. We've seen it before. I've talked about this previously when Bruno dons their superheroes cape in certain situations in games, especially if Newcastle are at home and they're chasing the result and the crowds are up. Bruno, he finds an extra 5, 10, 15% and he plays like a superhero, like a man possessed. Well, I think the belief from Eddie Howe and his staff is that if he wears the armband, they might just get that from him every game, especially away from home as well. Because for me, in the last couple of years, Bruno away from home has gone missing a little bit too strong. He certainly hasn't impacted as much as he has done at St James's Park at times. So I just think the belief is that Bruno and the team will benefit more for him having the armband, and it gives a level of, I use that word, certainty, consistency as to who is leading the team out. Now, the byproduct of that is two things. One, Jamal Lascelles is no longer team captain. He has been promoted to this role of club captain that will oversee the captaincy. He won't be fit to play for another 3 or 4 months anyway. But then also as well, and Eddie Howe said this morning, Kieran Trippier's role hasn't changed. Well, no, fundamentally it hasn't in the structure of things. He still is vice-captain, but what has changed is that when Lascelles isn't there, Trippier no longer leads out the team. How did he react to that? Well, I don't think he was pleased by from what I'm led to believe, speaking to as many different people as I possibly can, that's the job of a journalist, I don't think he was pleased by the timing of it. He was disappointed by that right on the eve of the season. He was told last week by Eddie Howe in one swoop that he wouldn't be starting the game against Southampton, which I think he kind of expected, having only been back in training in a couple of weeks. I don't think he took particular issue with that. But certainly the issue of the captaincy, he was upset by the timing of it, I'm led to believe. Now, is that the reason why you then saw reports that Kieran Trippier wants to leave Newcastle and is open to going? Well, I think it started a chain of events which has led to that. But is it the reason he wants to go? Has he thrown his toys out of the pram? No, absolutely not. This was there previously. There are motivating factors beyond this issue as to why Kieran Trippier is open to leaving Newcastle. And if the right offer came along, probably would push to leave the club in the next week. Now, he's happy for Bruno Guimaraes. There's no issue there. There's no real issue with Eddie Howe. He maintains a good relationship with the manager. The relationship goes back all the way to Burnley. That is strong. That is fine. But there are other factors at play here as to why Trippier would move if he perhaps could in the next 7 days. Do I think he is going to go? I honestly think it's 50-50 at this stage. There's interest from Atlanta, there's interest from Galatasaray. If he was to go, I think it would be to play Champions League football. Everton, they've sort of declared a tentative inquiry, interest, call it what you like. I'm not convinced Trippier himself is sold on another relegation battle. I know he doesn't necessarily want to go to London, West Ham as well. You know, they'd expressed interest earlier in the window. So at the moment, it's up in the air. Now, Eddie Howe was asked about this morning, and he said that all of this was a surprise to him, which Eddie has a tendency to do. We didn't expect him to come out and pour, fuel on this story, but he did say that he wants him to stay. It's his wish that he stays. He listed all of Kieran Trippier's qualities, but then at the end of it all said that he couldn't guarantee that he would be here beyond the end of the window. So that is pretty much where we're at with Kieran Trippier. Now, to go back to what I said at the very top there as to why I think it's imperative to keep him. He's such a good player. He still is a good player. I was at the Euros in the summer with England, and I was there every game live in the stadium, and Trippier took a stick, or he was highlighted as that area as a weakness in the team. That for me was nonsense. It wasn't Trippier himself who was the weakness. It was the issue of being a right footer on the left-hand side. I actually think individually within himself, he did very well, and I was doing the merit marks for the Daily Mail out there. When I look back on the scores I gave Kieran Trippier, it was a 6 minimum, and on most occasions a 6.5, 7. I think he got one 7.5. I thought he did well. He did well enough. I was very surprised when he actually didn't then play in the final. And if you consider that is on the left side, when his skill set is so greatly diminished, I just looked at that. And Kyle Walker didn't play well at the Euros at all. He was one of my worst performers. England should have actually played Kieran Trippier at right back, because what you gain is so much by having that right boot to open up play going forward, exactly what England were missing. And to see that back in the team with Newcastle, we know how valuable he's been from an attacking perspective. Any of you guys who play fantasy, I hate fantasy Premier League mentioning it in these videos, but I will do, because it does serve to highlight the point I make. The scores he returns in that, by the way of the goals, by way of the assists, everything else. He's such a... I think he really is, up there talking about world-class players, what he has been for Newcastle during the last 2.5 years, and to dispense with him now, when I still think he's got something left to give. And by the way, little newsy insert here, he's got 2 years left on his contract, not one. When he last signed the extension, it was revealed as to the end of 25. I can confirm there has at some point been, in the last 6 months, an extension to that. So he's got 2 years left on his deal. That could potentially open up a loan move, but away from all of that, just keep him here. He's brilliant. He's a fantastic character. If this move away doesn't work for him, he won't huff, he's too professional for that. He actually doesn't need the armband to be a leader anyway. He's that type of character. He's that type of person. So, yeah, for me, I just think, I really hope he doesn't go. I think Newcastle would be massively weakened on and off the park by the loss of Kieran Trippier. So, there you go. Now, what else did Eddie Howe say this morning? Well, inevitably, because there's still 1 week to go of the transfer window, we asked him about transfers, and specifically pushed on any updates with regards to Mark Guy. Now, I think it was telling, and this, I think we already knew this anyway, but Eddie's answer, and I'm quoting direct from him here. This is one advantage of recording indoors. I can't walk around with my laptop on the streets of Gosforth. He said, "No news. I'm a step removed from it, so it's always difficult for me to give you a definitive answer, but I'm aware there's still work going on behind the scenes. I am not getting regular updates, so what will be, will be." So why I say that's telling is because it talks to when we went out to see Eddie Howe in Germany last month there, and quite incredible really to address that half hour with us when he hinted at potential issues down the line with regards recruitment and his working relationship with Paul Mitchell and James Bunce. Now, there's nothing to suggest there's any unrest there. I think we're still in that, what I've called that probationary period, which will probably expire next week, and we'll have a better idea of where Eddie is at in terms of his feelings with regards how it is all working, that dynamic behind the scenes at Newcastle. But by saying that he's not getting regular updates and he's one step removed, that's a very definite difference from what it was previously. Eddie was hands-on. He was de facto director of football, chief scout, sporting director at one point. All of that rolled together. That's been removed now. He is the head coach by title and by practice now. He seems to be the head coach That's almost like fundamentally his sole focus now. And maybe you can argue so it should be. This structure should be in place whereby the negotiations and everything is removed from the manager. But certainly he is not getting that round the clock information that he once did have. But he has made it very clear that Mark Gay is the man he wants. Now, where are Newcastle at on this? I wrote in my Inside Newcastle inside column. No. Best get it right. It's a new column. Come on, Inside Newcastle column. There you go, Inside Newcastle. Remember the name. That's almost a note to self. Inside Newcastle. And I wrote there how there's still confidence the Gay deal can be done. Now, we saw earlier in the week reports linking Newcastle with various players, Tapsoba at Leverkusen. I do believe that was a little bit of a smokescreen for now, and all efforts are on Mark Gay. If you're pushing me I'll ask a question on your behalf. Do I think it'll happen? Yes, I probably do think it will. I don't think they're that too far apart in terms of valuation. Now, because Eddie has made it clear he is his number one target, I think there's a little bit of pressure on Paul Mitchell to deliver that now. Well, I do think Newcastle were naive to an extent to push the price up from 45.50 to 60.65 2 or 3 weeks out from the window. I do think they should have actually left it until now, until returning to the table, especially as they were the only horse in the race. It's like an eBay bid. An eBay auction, you wouldn't push the price up against yourself 2 weeks out from the auction expiring. I do think in that way they've got to a point now where the deal is, for me anyway, looking at the market and the ability of the player and everything else I think it's way beyond what they should actually be paying. But they probably have got themselves in that situation and they're going to end up paying somewhere around the £65 million mark now. But no, Eddie said he didn't have any updates on that front. Asked as well about outgoings, just little snippets here. Will a keeper leave? Possibly, he said. I think, or probably, or maybe, whatever word it was. But certainly, in Eddie speak, in Eddie language, decoding it for you, that means a keeper will leave. The information is that the Greek guy they got from Forest as part of the Elliot Anderson deal, Vlachos Sokrademis, please correct me below the line. I think it probably will be him who goes. There was mentioned mooted interest from Anderlecht among many others there. But apart from that, Callum Wilson's injured. Kieran Trippier we've spoken about. Miguel Almiron now. If Miguel Almiron had gone, the move to MLS Charlotte has fallen down. If he'd gone, Newcastle then would have had to have gone out and replaced him with a right winger. And that was Eddie's wish. That was Eddie's want at the start of the summer. He wanted a new right winger. Michael Elise at Palace, funnily enough, was their top target coming into the summer. That has changed now. And I wrote in Inside Newcastle, I got it right, the Inside Newcastle column yesterday, how I'm told if the money goes on Gay, there is no money for a big, significant marquee right winger sign. And they'll, of course, look at loan options. But it may be that Gay is the only guy who comes in and they just go with what they've got. In terms of budget there, the lot is going on this centre-back. I know you guys have argued with a lot of sense as well, and I almost subscribe to this myself. Why not split the money? Why not back your scouting department to go and find a £30-35 million centre-half on the continent like you did with Sven Botman, and then spend the other 30, 35, 40, whatever it may be, on a right winger, which they desperately need. Murphy and Almiron going into this season. I like them both. I've loved them both at various stages over the last couple of years, but you need better in that position. And the fact that the club come into the summer believing that themselves and they're going to come out of it having not addressed it probably, well, that would be a concern now. Now, where are they at going down to Bournemouth? What sort of shape are they in after last week? Now, I wrote a piece on Monday that I think was misinterpreted to a degree by some. It was an absolute minority on social media. The fact that 30,000 of you guys watched the post-match videos, thank you so much. The interaction was incredible. The comments as well below the line, really, really appreciate it. So sensible, honest, vibrant debate. I wrote on Monday's mail how it all felt a little bit flat inside St James's Park on Saturday. And I just want to revisit that because people, again, minority on X, come back and say, well, the one, you're being negative. I'm not, guys. I'm just being realistic. I know the article recorded the fact that they won and that they won brilliantly by, for the last hour, finding a way to dig on those reserves of togetherness and everything else. And I thought they were good. I thought there was a lot of signs of encouragement in that period. But the whole thing around the club, the whole vibe just felt a little flat. There's so many contributing factors to that. I just believe for the last 2.5 years we've been riding a magic carpet, and I just think this summer that carpet has come back down to earth and there's a little bit of realism around where Newcastle are. That doesn't mean they can't have a wonderful season. They've still got Alexander Isak, Bruno Guimaraes, Anthony Gordon, Eddie Howe as manager. They've still got a sold-out stadium. It still is on the upward trajectory. It's just maybe plateaued a little bit, and with that, a little bit of air has escaped the balloon the past 12 months. Go back to Aston Villa, the first game of the season last year, 5-1, Sandro Tonali, all the rest of it. It was the onset of a Champions League campaign. It was a club, shooting off to the moon, and we all enjoyed that ride. Amanda and Murdoch have gone. I thought that the atmosphere in the ground lacked their presence. No Saudi presence in the stands behind us there. It's just, I think what I'm saying. The vast majority have had different messages privately saying they know exactly what I'm talking about, and maybe it's to do in part in the makeup of who's sitting where in the stadium. Like I say, so many different factors, but that doesn't mean I tipped them to come fourth in the league. I do think, minus European football, that they will have a very good season. But going down to Bournemouth on Saturday with one or two still under cook. Bruno Guimaraes, the new captain, clearly isn't 100%. Anthony Gordon didn't look himself last Saturday. I do think it's going to be difficult down there. And at the moment, it's so much of an unknown. It's the opening weekend of the season last year. This is going off on a little tangent to a degree, but the opening weekend of the season, for me, it used to be up there when we were kids. It was right up there with the FA Cup final. You had the opening weekend, all that intrigue, seeing the new players, what a team's going to be like. It was all so different last year. I remember Newcastle '95, Ginola, Ferdinand, Hislop, Barton, same period, Jurgen Klinsmann scoring goals at Sheffield Wednesday, doing the Klinsmann dive. That opening weekend of the season was just a magical event. Last weekend, wow, it was a bit rubbish, wasn't it? It was just almost like a boring continuation of last season when the marquee game was Chelsea versus Manchester City, and I watched that with the boys, and I was just bored to tears almost at times. And I do think the point I'm making is that you shouldn't really read too much into the start of the season. Not the start of the season anymore, really. In fact, you've got the transfer deadline dragging on, and most clubs haven't done some of that key business, and it just feels like such a real, I used that word earlier, didn't I, about Newcastle, sort of deflation, air escaping the balloon. I do think, the FA Cup final and the opening weekend of the season aren't what they used to be, sadly. But because of that, in a roundabout way, I'm going to get back to the point I was making about Newcastle United, and that is that, don't really read too much into these opening weekends of the season. I don't think we're now seeing teams displaying what they really are and what they're really going to be until 2, 3, 4 weeks in, probably after the first international break. So to that end, what I think is going to happen on Sunday, I haven't got a clue. I really don't know. Bournemouth's one of those where in recent seasons, Newcastle have almost gone there and they've just put a line through that. It was an off day. They haven't performed well there at all recently from my memory. But at the same time, do they have the players to go there and win it? And crucially, no new injury problems going into Sunday. Well, absolutely they do, So, I'll actually be there as well, guys. I'm getting the flight down to Bournemouth on Sunday. So, please hit like, subscribe, crucially, comment below the line, interact with the video. I'll put the links to my Inside Newcastle column below. Loads of little snippets of information from there from Inside Newcastle, as you might expect. So, a visit from one of my little boys here. Just 1 second, son. You okay? Do you want to talk? Do you want to say hello? Shout hello. I know, you can't come on camera. Just shout.
Hello.
There we go. And now can you say goodbye?
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye from me and bye-bye from him. Okay, see you soon, guys. Take care.